Hi there. Some of you are already doing your last review before submitting your application for the European Forum Alpbach 2025 scholarship program, and I wanted to make this video to address what the selection committee is looking for, what are some of the official requirements, and some ideas that a former scholarship holder could give you about what to focus more on for this year. My name is Sonia. I'm a member of Initiative Group Alpbach Romania and also a former scholarship holder. And if you have any question that you feel like I didn't answer to, just make sure to send me an email. Also, I believe this video is going to be well received, whether or not you're applying for the 2025 edition or the 2026 edition, because there are some ideas that you can take from this video that I believe can be applied throughout the whole application process, no matter which year. First things first, the eligibility criteria from the official FO website says that you should be between 18 and 30 years old or up to 35 if you're from the Global South. Also, any discipline is welcome, so don't be discouraged if you are not an owner of a fancy degree or if you don't have certain certifications or so on. When I first applied, for a little bit of a context, I was 20 years old and I was in my second year of my bachelor in psychology, and I had this stereotype that in order to be eligible, like not explicitly eligible, but you should have a fancy degree and I don't know, wear business clothes and stuff like that. And I don't know, I had this idea that Alpbach is really this place for elites, and I was feeling not really good enough for that position to be in. But EFA is really about bringing people together from all fields so they can talk on ideas. It's not really about a certain discipline. If you are the kind of person that likes the tracks of European Forum Alpbach, like the part on climate, democracy, and security, and so on, it's enough. Like, just be interested into it, just be an active member of the society, and of course an active part of the discussion, and I believe that makes you eligible enough. And also all countries are welcomed, artists, non-graduates, and so on. You should be a first-time scholarship holder. If you're watching this video, you're probably a first-time scholarship holder. Obviously, I'm not eligible anymore. I've been a former scholarship holder in 2024. You have to have a minimum of B2. This has been the most frequently asked question. How do you prove your level? I remember when I first applied that I had a transcript from my university, and that's what I've applied with, and that was enough. No one asked me anything on it. And I also remember that I had a C2 for speaking, B1 for reading, B2 for another thing, and I had an average of B2. I don't believe they looked at details like what was my I don't know, comprehension skill or whatever, because obviously I didn't have a B2 everywhere, and that is to other reasons, not necessarily because I don't know English well. I was going through a burnout and whatever. But yeah, you can also test your English level by other means. You can prove it by Duolingo certificates. For the Duolingo certificate, you have to have a minimum of 100 points. You can do the TOEFL test. I don't know how to spell it. You have to have a minimum of 75 points. This kind of test, you have to have a minimum 5.5. The Cambridge minimum 160, and the MUET you have to have a minimum of 4. So just make sure that you can prove this by these certificates. And if you don't have any and you're really rushing, I suggest that you go on the English Schooler website. It's an official website with official certificates, and you have to pay something around 10 euros, and it's a certificate in a database that is available for 1 year. You can also do that, but basically they need anything that can prove your level of English. And there is also, I believe, a requirement that this certificate or this any kind of proof, it shouldn't be older than 3 years. So just make sure to check on this detail. Or you should be in an English speaking country. This you're gonna make sure to prove by a picture of your passport, as far as I know. And if you've done a degree in English, this you will prove it with that degree diploma, I believe. But again, they don't look at details, just make sure that you give out the required certificates that they ask for. Again, another eligibility criteria is that you need to have a minimum of 11-day attendance. That's their minimum. Just make sure to free your calendar and save the date, because European Forum Alpbach is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you really, really want to make sure that you're not missing out. I remember when I first got there and I saw what's happening around me, I was like, whoa, how can I clone myself to make sure that I'm everywhere at the same time? So make sure you're not getting the fear of missing out, but in a really good way, because it's a great opportunity to network and to have meaningful conversations and so on. And I don't believe you want to miss out on that. So make sure that you have a minimum of 11-day attendance, and preferably throughout the whole thing. So what the selection committee is actually looking for, I also want to apply to be the selection committee for this year, so it's going to be interesting, just so you can get an idea who the selection committee is made out of as people. Well, it's made out of people from fields that are just as diverse as the applicants themselves. So there are normal people, people from academia, people that have a business, startup, people that are thinkers or philosophers, or they are professors, stuff like that. I mean, I'm finishing my bachelor in psychology, so there are people from all sorts of fields, really. And we are going to look over your application, and we're going to rate it from a scale of 9 to 0 or 0 to 9 on each and every question, and also on each and every section of your application. Also, each application is anonymized and read by 2 or 3 people. Your average score is going to be your final score. It's going to be reviewed by 3 people if you have a difference that's greater than 5 points. As an example, I can give you an 80 and another person can give you a 90. That's going to go to a third person because there is a difference that's greater than 5 points. But as an example, if I give you a 90 and the other person is giving you a 95, that's going to be an average of 92.5, if my math is not mistaken. The selection committee is really looking for that you know what European Forum Alpbach is about, because I know that there are people that find these opportunities online without too much background, really, and they believe that it is an interesting opportunity and it's something interesting to apply for, or they are the kinds of people that apply to lots of things and they are just excited to see whether or not they've been selected. That's not bad. I mean, it's really good to apply for opportunities, but the selection committee is looking for you to know what the European Forum Alpbach is actually about, so it doesn't hurt, just as a suggestion, if in your motivational letter you also take a certain track that attracts you as an idea and talk a little bit about it and show your interest actually in the content of the forum, so they can better understand that yes, you actually have done your research and you actually read articles about it and watched some videos. You're gonna get goosebumps. It's really unique what's happening there. So yeah, make sure that you let the selection committee know that you actually know what European Forum Alpbach is about. Don't just write about yourself, also write about some of the tracks or some of the seminar chairs or some of the ideas that you believe you're gonna benefit out of, to bring it back to your country and maybe do some opportunity there as well. They want to make sure that you can actually use European Forum Alpbach to make a change in this world. So write about that. Each applicant is evaluated within their context. Again, you don't need a fancy degree in order to get to European Forum Alpbach. You don't need fancy names or certificates or so on. Of course, that's welcomed, but again, they are looking for the context here. So you're going to be evaluated really differently if, as an example, you're coming directly from your high school to university and you didn't have any kind of issue with your socioeconomic background and so on, and they are going to evaluate it differently within the context of your life. If, as an example, you come from a harsh socioeconomic background and you're the first one into your family that's doing a university, as an example, they are looking for these things, because it's a scholarship. So of course they want to give it to someone that's doing a change for their future. It's not an extra if you come from a harsh economic background, of course, but what I mean by this is make sure that you let them know about your background, you let them know about the hardships and something that you're trying to change in this world, and what's been a little bit of the direction that you're taking your life for better or worse. The final decision of the evaluation is made after the review of all applicants in that region has been done. So basically, as an example, they are not gonna reject your application just because you wrote something that didn't resonate with them. They're first things first going to read all the applications and afterwards compare it to other participants of the same level. So you're not going to be rejected just because it doesn't sound good. Also, we are not in school, so there's not a certain structure. There isn't something that you should write or something that you should say. Just make sure that you are coherent, that you argue your position well, and make sure that your motivation is there. You're showing them that you are worth for them to invest into, and that you're actually taking something from European Forum Alpbach, bringing it home and making a change, because that's what it is all about for the scholarship program. So the selection committee, as I said before, is going to rate your application on a scale from 0 to 9. For the background, so let's go into the specifics of the application process. Things that matter are your educational success. This is context dependent, as I said. Educational success looks really different from one person to the other. Okay, it sounds really great on the paper if you say, oh, I come from Stanford, but it is going to be even greater if, as I said, you're coming from a harsh background, or that you're the first one doing university from your family, or that you are coming from a low possibility place, or you're an ethnic minority that's trying to make a change and change people's minds on race differences, as an example. So those kinds of things matter. That is also a success. What I want to say with this is that, again, you don't need the fancy universities that are recognized internationally and so on. They just want to know what your background is on your education. And I also know that for this part I wrote about my Erasmus Plus opportunities that I went to. That is also education. I mean, I was in progress in university. I didn't really have much but a high school diploma, so I was a work in progress myself. I wasn't a graduate, and I got in also. And most of the people that I know from European Forum Alpbach, anyways, they are in progress. So as you might imagine, it is not a requirement that you should be a graduate or finish some kind of fancy educational path. So, okay, to wrap this up, write about your background here in the educational success part. Don't be ashamed to talk about your family if it's needed, or your background, your peers, your school bullying, or whatever. I mean, everything goes here, and be open and honest. And it is really important to be authentic here on how you are saying and how you're telling your life background, basically. For the professional experience, again, this is very context dependent in relation to your age. Of course, if you have a huge list of things at 30, it's going to hit different for the selection committee. But if you are 20 years old and you have a few things that you've been doing, but they are kind of unique, let's say, it's going to be really cool, and it's going to count as professional experience. Here, I don't want people to overthink what professional experience means, because, as an example, I was writing things about how I'm trying to integrate people into the background of like the job market and so on, so they can get skills. And I was working so as a background to make sure everyone understands. What I'm doing is that I was facilitating before opportunities for young people that are coming from troubled backgrounds, and I was trying to make sure that they are going to have a job in the future. But the reason why they didn't get a job was because they didn't have the skills. So I was trying to facilitate through non-educational, non-formal, to be more specific, non-formal educational methods, through team buildings and hands-on work and stuff like that, the skills necessary for them so they can be integrated into society and into the workforce later on. And I was writing about this for the professional experience, even though it wasn't something official. No one actually hired me for this. I was doing it as an opportunity in collaboration with my university. It was something interested at that time. And something I didn't think much of. I remember first learning about this kind of non-formal education from an Erasmus Plus. I also wrote about my experience going into trainings with Erasmus Plus, doing youth exchanges, stuff like that. Again, no one hired me, no one paid me for these things, and they counted as professional experience because I was actually doing something with people. I was focused on a goal. And even though you were not hired one day of your life like I was still counting the professional experience of things like this that really matter. If you have any kind of volunteering done, that also can count as professional experience. So these are some of the things that you can write about. If you've done, as an example, internships, those are also professional experience. If you had a summer job, it doesn't matter if you've been a barista. What it matters is that, as an example, you were a barista and you met someone, and it changed by you sitting down and having an idea, and there's the same background in the European Forum Alpbach that inspired you to go there. You can, of course, do some parallels in between your professional experience and your motivational letter, if there is any. So it doesn't have to be something fancy. That's where I always want to get to, and that's what I want to insist on. Your professional experiences doesn't have to be fancy stuff. Just write so they have an idea that you're actually trying to have an initiative, and that you're going to take something from European Forum Alpbach and eventually continue into your professional experience. Extracurriculars are mega important here. Again, if you don't have any kind of extracurriculars, this word is killing me. Yes, so if you don't have any extra activities that are mega important, just make sure that you state that you have a focus or you have a plan. You are reading about something, you're doing an online course. That's professional. That's better fit for the educational part, but what I want to say is that just make sure that you're mentioning that you are trying to go on a certain path, and let's see what's going to go out from there. What are some of the things to better focus on? If you don't have any fancy background, as I said before, it's great to focus on the fact that you're creative. As an example, I didn't have my professional experience, but I was still creative enough to do something for people, and I was really interested into applying some of the things that I've learned from the Erasmuses. It's important if you have a great network of people. Let's say that you are not hired professionally, but you have a great network of people and you are coming with initiatives for certain people, or that you have a great network that you're helping and you're benefiting the society for a greater good. Let's say, I don't know, if you are getting clothes through this network and giving to the poor, as an example, it shows that you have a great network. But just make sure to write that down. It can be really important. Or if you come from disadvantaged backgrounds, again, really don't be ashamed to write about this. Before, I was really ashamed of my background, and I wasn't too proud of the things that I went through in middle school as well, the bullying and so on. But they want to see that you actually get to connect, that what happened in the past made you the person who you are today, and how that can, from the hardships that you went through, that can lead to action somehow. There are some focus groups for the European Forum Alpbach of this year. I believe they are the same as last year: female talents in STEM, urban development, talents in engineering, arts and culture, entrepreneurship, and finance. So if you are part of these focus groups, that's super great. For your motivational statement, there are 3 questions. I'm going to give you a brief what I would write right now after doing a full application and being selected for the 2024 scholarship program. These questions differ from year to year. So if you don't see this video in 2025, just make sure to check what are some of the things that you have to write about in your motivational statement. So the first question of 2025, if you could rewrite one historical decision that shaped Europe, or that Europe shaped globally, what would it be and why? Okay, so here I have some thoughts. I already debated in my head what I would have written, and think about it. Most people are going to write here about Trump in office and how that is affecting Europe as well, how everything is interconnected somehow with the USA, or the war in Ukraine. Stuff like this, which of course is really important. I'm not saying it's not important, but make sure that if you are writing something that you believe is going to be written by other people as well, because we are kind of getting the same information everywhere from media and so on, and these are really big impactful things to think about. But make sure that you are somehow differentiating yourself by having some controversial opinion. Again, don't be afraid to be politically right here. Don't be afraid that you are not. That's what I mean. That you're not woke enough, or don't be afraid to be more conservative maybe, or again, we need diversity. We need controversial opinions. You can write something that's wrong, so not politically right, and still go and be accepted for the European Forum Alpbach. European Forum Alpbach, I wouldn't say it's leaning towards something, especially when it comes to motivational statement. I remember putting something quite controversial myself in last year's questions, but I don't have the last year's questions at hand, so I don't necessarily remember specifically what the question was. But here again, if I was you, and something just to consider or think about, if you're going to write about something popular, make sure that you have something to add to it. Something that you don't believe many people are seeing, something that you don't believe many people are going to write about, something a little bit more controversial, something like this, I would say. Or even try to abstain from going with the popular beliefs that you believe are politically correct. Here I would say it's really what is the correct word for it? It's kind of thought-provoking, provoke your thoughts, see what comes out, make a little bit of brainstorming. I'm really curious what these years people have written here at this question. I cannot wait to read some of the applications. So that's for the first question, what I would suggest. What do you hope to take away from European Forum Alpbach, and how will you contribute? This question is made that it's somehow made so that they make sure that you actually know what European Forum Alpbach is about. And the question specifically is, how are you going to go there, take something out of the conversation, out of the ideas, out of the people, out of the network, and come back in your home country and apply it there. So it's a question about impact. I remember writing specifically, and at one of these questions, I believe exactly the same question has been last year as well, I wrote about how I would make some kind of project. So I was or I believe I got this question into the interview, and I remember specifically what I said is that I have access to a space that I'm going to use in order to make some of the human library initiative. So human library is where you are getting multiple people around, and you have a list of stories, and you only can see the title, but the title of the books are actually people. I went to an Erasmus Plus project that was along these lines, and I found it really interesting, and I wanted to bring the concept back to Romania. And also I believed, when I was reading about European Forum Alpbach, and also that's an extra point, because for me at least, that I wrote in the motivational statement, that I said how European Forum Alpbach actually, the seminars kind of look like the human library, because you know the subject, you know what you're going to read into the book, like the book being the people and the seminarists, and you're going to you are all going to facilitate together a conversation. So that's what I wrote here about how I'm going to take the ideas from European Forum Alpbach, bring them into my country, and transform it into some books that people are going to want to read like I was the book and I was talking about the experience of European Forum Alpbach. Here I also said that I wanted to be part of Initiative Group Alpbach Romania, which I become part of. So actually taking part in the network of European Forum Alpbach as whole, and continue my pursuit of spreading the world about this opportunity. Or you could write about how you're going to promote it on social media, and anything goes here really. But here I would think about a project, what I would do back in my country to make sure that the knowledge that I've taken in from European Forum Alpbach that doesn't just stay with me. Like, I would be selfish and I would be like, yes, I love this information. Like, I'm actually sharing it to the world. What is your key vision for Europe? Feel free to include perspectives from both within and beyond Europe. Here you can go as politically incorrect as you want. I would say this is again a very thought-provoking question. There are so many things that you could write here, and there are so many ways to answer to this question. I wouldn't say this question is about interpretation, because it can be interpreted so uniquely for each and every individual, and I believe that is the main the main task, right? It's you're going to interpret this question based on your background. If there is something that I would add here is maybe you could write a little bit here about your background and how that translates to your key vision in Europe. What's one thing that you saw that wasn't okay? Maybe you were the victim of it yourself, and how would you change your vision for Europe so that doesn't happen again? Just as an example, that's the first thing that came into my mind. Key vision for Europe, what you want to the future, kind of that's what I believe this question is about. You can include perspectives from both within and beyond Europe. I think I would take one of the most sensational news that I heard and break it down at this part of the motivational statement and comment on it. I believe that's something that I would do as well. But again, everything goes. It is really about, in your motivational statement especially, so not only for the European Forum Alpbach, but other scholarships as well. It is about how are you going to make it that through your motivational statement, your qualities are on light. But even better if you could write about your faults, because I remember in the interview when I was interviewed for the scholarship, because some of the clubs, as an example, Initiative Group Alpbach Romania was having an interview. I don't believe this is true for all of the clubs, but I remember talking about how I have my own stereotypes with some types of people, and I believe being in such a diverse group would greatly benefit me, because I believe those stereotypes were the thing that were really blocking me from listening. And it would be great if you would write in your motivational statement also faults and not only things that make you better than other candidates. That can be a really good show of honesty and authenticity. So that is for the motivational statement, I believe. These are some of the info webinars. We are way past 17th of March, but in the 24th of March, so like a few days later, there's going to be the last webinar for the European Forum Alpbach 2025 motivational part. I don't necessarily know what the info webinars are about. I imagine it is about information, but it might be really great if you would take this video and also maybe go at one of the last seminars before submitting your application. These are some of the socials of Initiative Group Alpbach Romania. And if is what you make of it, save the date. And I truly hope to only hear of good accepted applications and people going to Alpbach and breathing in the great air of the mountains and everything that's beautiful there, and also looking around for the flowers. Here you can see them, and eat Austrian butter. So yes, these are some of the unique experiences. Thank you so much for watching, and see you around.